Hey folks, Greg Sherman, Mr. Bowtie 1982 on Twitter. Thank you so much for joining us. It is the third round preview of the Texas girls basketball knockout rounds. And as always, we appreciate you stopping by. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. I always get it reversed, but make sure you hit that so that way you can stay up to date on all the great stuff going on around the state of Texas, including here in the San Antonio, Austin area. My Twitter is at Mr. Bowtie 1982. And don't forget, comment in the comments section on YouTube down below. If we're not covering a team or we're missing somebody that we should be talking about, let us know. There's so many great teams out there. There's hundreds of great teams, thousands of great players. Joe and I can't possibly touch everything, even though we certainly try to. So make sure you leave a comment in the comment section, DM me on Twitter, knock on my door. My dogs don't bite. Well, they bite me, but that's another story. Speaking of Joe Lombard, we always welcome in the master of the Texas high school girls basketball, Joe Lombard. And Joe, there's an old saying in the UIL tournaments, regardless of sport, that the third round is really where the tournament begins because of the declared district champions being able to play each other for the first time and district teams rematching with each other. So now we're about to start to find out who's really a contender and who's just a Cinderella.
Yeah, that third round, that regional quarterfinal round, Greg, is many times it's like a state championship game. You're going to have, like you said, the number one team out of a district playing its neighbor, number one team out of another district. And those teams very well could be top 10 teams. And we've got some of that out here in the Panhandle for sure this coming week. So, yeah, there's going to be some great games. And there were some great games in round two, but round three is, there's some, it'd be great to get out and watch a game. Pick a favorite team and go watch them.
Absolutely. And folks, we want to remind you first off, don't forget to pick up Joe's book, More Than a Coach. It's a really well-written book. I've had a chance to go through some of it and you really enjoy it. And the proceeds go to the Tatum Tough Foundation. You can check out, look online or your favorite bookstore retailer and get in touch with Joe. He'll definitely get you connected and it's worth a read. Now, as always, we will break down all 6 classifications. We will not go in chronological order by classification, and we'd love to have you stay with us for every classification. But if you only want to see the classification that interests you the most, you can look down at the description on the YouTube link here and click on that number icon, that time, and you can go directly to the classification that interests you. But again, we'd love to have you for the whole hour. We got lots of stuff to talk about. And we're going to start with Class 3A, Joe, because there's been a lot of crazy looniness going on both in Region 1 up there with the defending state champions going down in the second round in a game that may not have been necessarily an upset. And then there's a lot of lunacy down here in Region 4, Joe.
Yes, the Brownfield defending state champion in Class 3A lost to Idalou, who both of them are ranked in the top 10 here at the end of the season. Idalou has a great team. We've seen them, have played them this year. But I think it was 47-42. Last year, Brownfield won at the end of the game on a controversial foul and went on to win the state championship, had 5 starters back. And so that was a big game. And really it was a 50-50 type game where either team could have won. So great. I'm sure it's a great game to watch. And but you have games like that sometimes in round 2, and there's an example of a super game.
Yeah, and we mentioned how you normally have declared district champions that can't meet until the third round. It's not very often you get a matchup of a teams that came into the tournament. Trying to look over real quick. Brownfield was 20, now finishes at 24-4. Idalou is 27-6. Usually the second round's the last round before you kind of get the fireworks. But again, Joe, that Region 1 is loaded with Canadian, with Tuscola, Jim Ned. I know Peaster's doing well. Bushland won in the second round, and Shallowater's also in. I mean, it's like Idalou gets a big win, but it's not like you get much time to celebrate.
No, they better be ready to play the next game. I promise you. But yeah, everybody that's left is quality team, and it'd be hard to pick the winner. But like I said last week, Peaster and Jim Ned have been on the roll all year. And then you have Shallowater, who won it 2 years, the state title 2 years ago, with some of those same kids returning. Idalou, a hungry team that just beat beat the defending state champion. So it's going to be awesome this next week. So some great games in 3A.
Yeah, and one of the other regions in region number 2, Ponder and Pottsboro, a game with two teams that were also ranked. Ponder beat Pottsboro to move on to the third round. Winsboro is into the third round. Again, there's so many great teams. I believe it is, oh boy, I'm trying to do my math. There's still almost 200 teams left in the draw.
Yeah.
So it's going to be 192. That's what it is. Thanks, Joe. 192. So it's going to be hard to get. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
I just want to mention about Fairfield in Class 3A. They're still winning, and they're one of the favorites as well, besides all those teams out of the Region 1. So look forward to watching those guys play.
Yeah, speaking of Fairfield, they beat Rice in the second round. I don't know if that's Rice High or Rice University. I know Rice University is going to pick up a good player out of the Cedar Park area. We'll mention Shelby Hayes in a little while. But I want to talk about Region 4 down here, because we've had just as much craziness as you all have had up there in Region 1, even though we don't have as many ranked teams. Karnes City, who beat undefeated Columbus in the first round, they beat Blanco to get to the third round. Lytle beat Nixon Smiley by 41. Skidmore Tynan is also into the third round. 27 6A and 28 6A met. 3A, not 6A. 27 28 3A. Teams are doing quite well. Actually, let me try that again, Joe. You're getting me all tongue-tied because of that vest that you're wearing. 26 and 27 3A when it combined 7-1 in the first round, and so those teams matching up. I was at Cole versus Poth on Friday night over at Converse Judson. It was not a thing of beauty. Cole had one field goal in the first quarter, 10 for the game, turned it over 25 times. But Poth missed 2 layups in the final couple of minutes. Cole got a 3 and then another quick basket to take the lead, made their free throws and won 36-29. They'll take on Lago Vista in the third round, who beat Catula, who potentially could be back in this spot next year. But Joe, that Cole Poth game, that's a classic example of who cares how you win, just win, baby, as Al Davis would say.
Yeah, just win. Sometimes it's going to be ugly, especially if you get on a playoff run where you're playing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games in a row. That's going to happen. You're going to have to win sometimes when you don't have your A game, and that's difficult to do. So you better hope your defense is stifling the other team, or you're going to get beat. But there's an example, and when it comes down to the last seconds of the game, just about anything can happen.
Yeah, not everything was crazy. Bishop and Aransas Pass, who will meet in the third round, potentially could be to see who ends up in the state semis if it's not Lytle. They both beat a couple of IDEA schools out of the Rio Grande Valley by 64 points and by 69. So not everything as much of a blowout as, or not everything as close as we would expect. Well, let's move on to 2A. We'll stay with the smaller classifications. We'll get to the big classifications in a little while, everybody. We'll go on to 2A, where just like it is in 3A, Region 1 is so dominant. Groover, who's still undefeated, beat Olton by 56 points. The other winners, Clarendon beat Bovina, Wellington beat Farwell, Sundown, Ropes, Panhandle High, who's a past champion, New Home, and Sudan are all in the third round out of Region 1. And Lipan and Cisco will meet up in the third round after both winning second round games that were actually pretty close.
Yeah, I tell you, a big game in Region 1 is going to be Groover versus Panhandle in this third round. So Groover, the number 1 ranked team, Panhandle's in the top 10, and they have a tradition of playing close games. So Groover versus Panhandle is one to really watch out here. Another good game is going to be New Home and Sudan. They both are strong, and I expect that to be a great game. Could go either way. So in Region 1, Wellington is still in it. They play Clarendon out of their own district, so should be a good ball game. So look for Groover, but I tell you, Panhandle is playing well right now.
Yeah, and those, again, are teams that have won state championships in recent times. Chris Summerall, the coach of Wellington, took Garden City to the state semis a handful of years ago. Region 2, which is always kind of quirky to see the Abilene area not in Region 1, but the smaller classifications in most sports, they are in Region 2. Cisco, Lipan, the defending state champions, mentioned they beat Anson by 8, another Abilene area team. Stamford, who is the defending 2A champions in softball, they will take on Haskell in the third round. Munster beat Cumbie by a comfortable margin. Region 3, Lovelady, Martins Mill, teams you would expect were able to win. Dallasville, Big Sandy won by 64. LaPointe, a team that's used to being in the state semifinals, they're into the third round. Douglas, who's also highly ranked, they're into the third round. Tenaha, who's better known for their football, is also into the third round. Region 4 here, Weimar, a team who's a past state champion, who also is a strong team in the world of softball, beat Iola by just 5. They'll take on Hearn in the third round. Mason, who's been to the state semis in the past, they beat Port Aransas. What was a really, really good game we thought would be close. Three Rivers, Shiner, Norman G, San Saba, and Harper are the other teams. So again, we'll get to see some good matchups in the third round. Well, let's move down to Class 1A again before we get to the larger classifications. Nazareth and Sands continuing their potential collision course in the fourth round. Naz beat Claude, but only by 14. Spring Lake Earth was a winner. Lamesa Klondike, Gale Borden County, who is done well on the girls' side when they don't have to deal with when they're in Region 2 and don't have to deal with Naz, but they're in Region 1 now. Joe, Naz only beating Claude by 14. Is that a sign that maybe things are getting closer, or is it just their status quo?
We knew going in, Claude had a good team this year. In fact, they start 3 6-footers in Class A. So that's pretty good size. And however, I'd heard that one of them was injured, not playing, but still a little bit of a surprise, but not going off preseason. I think a lot of people had Claude as picked as one of the top 3 teams in this region. So they obviously played pretty well the other night against Naz, but Naz got the win. So Naz down the road, perhaps meeting Sands is going to be the big game.
Yeah, and that's something that I know you hit on right away at the start, where everybody was wondering what would happen when Sands and Naz play. They each have one more game they have to win before they get there. Naz will play Spring Lake Earth, while Sands will play Whiteface, who beat Guthrie. Turkey Valley, Miami, who are both good teams in 6-man football. Advanced as is Lisa Klondike and Gale Borden County, as I mentioned. Region 2, Vera Best, who was in the semis not too long ago, a winner over Ira Ann. They'll take on Robert Lee in the third round. Robert Lee is one of those teams that is highly ranked. Westbrook, who won the 6-man football state championship, bit of an upset out of the Colorado City area. They're into the third round. They'll take on the Highland Hornets in round 3. Arion County, Sterling City, Hermley, who's also a past semifinalist, and Eula, who is one of those schools that says they've been undefeated in football since 1942, advances. But let's get to a Cinderella, Joe. We mentioned this is the first year for 1A to have a 4th team to get in. Only 2 of them advanced into the second round, and Gordon is the only one left. They beat Lomita. They'll take on Huckabee in the third round, who is very highly ranked, but maybe we have ourselves a little Cinderella, Mr. Lombard.
Yeah, that's a great story, like you said. And sometimes teams get hot right at the end of the year and get some confidence going and play well when they need to really play well. So good for Gordon. And like you said, they're playing Huckabee, who is probably going to be the favorite. But Gordon may be on a little bit of a roll here, and I'm sure their town is excited to follow the girls this deep into the playoffs.
And you don't want to forget about the defending champions, Dodge City, who weren't quite as strong this year. Well, they're still in the draw. They beat Henrietta midway, and so they are still the defending champions until somebody beats them. Linglaville, who is better known again on the boys' side, they're into the third round. Richland Springs, Slidell, and Throckmorton, a couple of 6-man football powers, and Slidell, who's done real well on the boys' side, they're in to round number 3. Well, we go on to the final region, Region 4. Chirino, a past semifinalist, will take on Natchez, who is a power in girls volleyball. But Joe, guess what? Our little team that we've been riding a little bit, Tilden McMullen County, Shannon Taylor, his team beat Bartlett by 40. They're into round 3. They'll take on Rock Springs, who is went to the semis on the boys' side last year. And this is the round where McMullen County can never get out of. They always get to the third round, but they never get past it. And Joe obviously is as a multiple state champion 19 times, 20 when you had the assistants, and you've never really had that issue. But for teams that can get to a round but just can't get past it, how do you get past that mental hurdle like what Tilden McMullen County is going to be facing?
Yeah, you see that happen a lot, Greg, that sometimes there is a hurdle right there. And sometimes it's just you just got to do it. You just got to go win that game and prepare for it, and really show up for the game, step up and play like you're capable of playing. But I don't think there's a magic formula. It can be a mental block, but sometimes those mental blocks can graduate and new kids come in and not quite as intimidated by the fact that they always lose in that second or third round. So good luck to them, McMullen. Hope they do well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we're not biased towards anyone, but McMullen County, a team that doesn't get a lot of coverage. It's a non-football playing school. It's on the other side of Pleasanton from San Antonio. It's an interesting story, and it'll be good to see what happens against Rock Springs. The other teams advancing: Coolidge, Zavala, Neches Canyon, who beat Moulton. Maybe a little bit of a surprise there. And Fayetteville beat another past semifinalist, to Hannes. And Fayetteville, Clint Yeager may end up winning as many state championships as you, Joe, just because he coaches just about every sport. He coached the baseball team to a state championship in June, coached volleyball to a championship in November. I'm assuming that's probably the first time it's ever happened that a head coach has won state championships in those two sports in the same calendar year. He's the assistant girls basketball coach, and he's a volunteer assistant for the boys coach. So wow. Joe, he may end up with as many state championships as you, and he may win.
Good luck. I hope he gets it. I hope he can get some rest somewhere. That's a full schedule, and especially when you go deep into playoffs in every sport, it can kind of wear you down. But gosh, I wish them a great luck as they go after the basketball title, and that'd be awesome news to hear, and a coach to be celebrated. So that's a great thing, and I had not heard of that. So good luck to them.
Yeah, I do want to ask you though, Joe, on that point where you coached at Nazareth back in the day, back when things were a lot different. I know there was a lot of 1A, 2A schools all around Amarillo and Lubbock, so it's not uncommon. In fact, it's very common in these small schools that you'll have somebody who will be the head coach in multiple sports. Is it that old cliche where success in one sport breeds success in another as a coach?
I think a little bit. I happened to coach both the girls and boys the last 2 years I was at Nazareth. And so both teams made it to the state championship. And man, when the season ended, I was exhausted because, you have that stress of preparing for the next game. Well, not only you doing one, the girls may play on Monday, the boys may play on Tuesday. I mean, it's just one thing after another. And so that was exhausting to do both of those things. Very rewarding, but don't hear a lot of that anymore. But I think sometimes when you see success on, say, the girls' side, I think the boys want to follow suit, and it can be a nice, friendly little competition within the school.
Well, in this case, maybe the other way around, with baseball winning that title. Baseball actually beat Nazareth in the semifinals and then went on to win the championship. In fact, Clint Yeager's so good, he's actually unbeaten as the football head coach at Fayetteville.
There you go, man. Hey, God bless him. That's awesome, man.
Joe, it also helps that Fayetteville does not play football.
Oh, there you go. No,
Joe, we got to work on this Region 4 for you in 1A. But hey, Fayetteville.
I hope they stay undefeated.
They will stay undefeated. Hey, Fayetteville does, but Fayetteville, one of the many schools that does not play football, just like the Jacksonville Jaguars. And on that note, let's quickly transition now up to the bigger classifications, Class 6A, where it's been a lot of status quo. Southlake, Carroll, Fort Worth, Boswell, both advanced. In fact, the El Paso area is completely out of the draw. A little surprise in all the classifications. South Grand Prairie, who has gone from a few years ago being a Cinderella story when they got to the fourth round as a 4 seed, They're now into the third round after beating Plano. Going to be a really, really good matchup in the third round between them and Coppell.
Yeah, I think so. Those are top 10 teams. Both those are top 10 teams. So that should be a great third round matchup, much like you started the program talking about.
Yeah, and remember, of course, DeSoto and Duncanville are Region 2. Region 1 still has a lot of good stuff. Plano East is into the third round, doubling up. Richardson, Denton, Braswell is into the third round as well. Euless Trinity and Hearst LD Bell, a HEB ISD third round matchup between Bell and Trinity. Then we get over to Region 2, where there were some fireworks. DeSoto and Duncanville won pretty easily, but Cedar Hill blew an 8-point lead in the final minutes, needed a couple late free throws to beat Garland. Saxey, some people call it Saxey, some will call it Sashi, some will call it other ways, but Cedar Hill into the next round. Conroe beat Cypress Springs in overtime, and Mansfield, Lake Ridge, Grand Oaks, Tomball Memorial also advancing. But again, it still seems like it's going to be DeSoto and Duncanville, although Duncanville playing Cedar Hill in the third round, maybe Cedar Hill just got caught looking ahead and almost losing.
Well, there'll be some great athletes on the court when Duncanville plays Cedar Hill, and probably they've already played, right? Cedar Hill and Duncanville have already played each other this season. So I'm guessing anyway. It seems like they always play every year, whether they're in the same district or neighboring districts. But there'll be some athletes, and through the years we've had the opportunity to play both those people. And mercy's sakes, I mean, there's some great athletes that are can run and jump and hoop, and that should be a fun game to watch. But Duncanville's the favorite. And like you said, to meet DeSoto, and gosh, what did I read the other day? DeSoto had 7 Division I players, which is pretty incredible. So should be some high quality basketball.
And remember, DeSoto swept Duncanville in the regular season. Region 3, Cy Creek, for the first time in 3 years, will not be in the state finals. They lost to Fort Bend Dulles, so we'll have at least 2 new teams in the state semifinals in 6A. Probably a little bit of a changing of the guard. Fort Bend, Austin won. They'll take on Katy Seven Lakes, team that won the national volleyball title a couple years ago. Galena Park North Shore, they have success in football, winning a title over Duncanville. They're into the third round after beating Friendswood Clearbrook in overtime. They'll take on Pearland, another team that's used to success in other sports. Katy Tompkins needed overtime to survive the first round. They beat Stratford in the second round to take on Fort Bend Dulles, who beat Cy Creek. And then potentially our changing of the guard game, Alvin Shadow Creek taking on Summer Creek. Both teams are highly ranked, and potentially, Joe, maybe the winner of that matchup potentially not only gets to the state semifinals, but maybe they're the new team to beat in the Houston area in 6A.
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe so, because some of those teams have been knocking on the door, I mean, the last several years, and can't get by the Duncanvilles and the DeSotos. But who knows? This might be the year where they come out of Houston and win the whole thing. So that should be a great game.
Region 4 of 6A has really kind of been torn up down here. Clark beats Cedar Park Vista Ridge. It's not a surprise, but San Antonio Johnson, they don't win playoff games very often, but when they do, they come in bunches. They beat Round Rock McNeil last night. The 4th place team out of Clark's district gets into the third round. They'll rematch. Remember, folks, Johnson did beat Clark, one of 2 teams to beat Clark, along with Duncanville earlier in the season. That was in a non-district tournament, though Clark blew out Johnson twice in the regular season in district. San Antonio Harlan going through the southern part of the draw. They beat Edinburgh Vela. They'll take on Harlingen in round number 3. Then we get to Laredo. Well, first, Laredo United South beats Edinburgh. They'll take on San Antonio Brennan. Brennan had a great start to the season, kind of cooled off a little bit in February, in late January, early February. They're getting back going, but I want to get to a specific matchup that might be just as intriguing as that Duncanville DeSoto game. Austin High and Cibolo Steel in the third round. Steel beat Round Rock Cedar Ridge by 6 after holding off Reagan in the first round by 1. But now you get to Austin High, who has Chris Clack's younger daughter. Chris Clack was a great player at the University of Texas, went on to the NBA with the Celtics, played overseas. They blew out Brandeis 70-48. Remember, Brandeis blew out Judson in the first round. And talking to Jennifer Brewer, who's the head coach of Brandeis, she said, you all better keep your eyes out on this Austin High team, and this Austin High versus Cibolo Steel matchup, Joe. This may be the one to keep an eye on in the third round if it's not Shadow Creek and Summer Creek.
Yeah, sounds like they're loaded. And I remember Coach Ott from Cedar Park talking about Austin High and how good they were. So, yeah, that may be a team to watch that comes out of from nowhere. And sometimes when you have a team that didn't have a long-standing tradition with that they sneak in there and get a great team together for that year or two, and maybe that's happening.
Yeah, they're comparing this team to one of the greatest of all time to come out of Austin ISD, and that's Austin LBJ, who lost in the 5A state championship game in 2011. Joe, for 2 points, who beat him in that game in 2011? You happen to know?
Might have been somebody out of that Canyon school system. Yeah, we we were fortunate to get by those guys. They were a great team. They had 2 or 3 Division I players, I remember. And we won a close game, and a kind of a magical season for us. We went undefeated that year, and we beat Beaumont Ozen in the semis, and then Austin LBJ. If I remember right, they're the same score, 44-39. So that was a great year for us.
Yeah, and it's been tough for Austin ISD, but they've been coming back. LBJ went to the football finals this year, overcame some adversity to get there. And this Austin High team, look out, folks. If they get by Steele, they could very easily they could end up in the state semifinals. Qwirk is a team that we mentioned earlier in our 1A segment about how Tilden McMullen County always gets to the third round in basketball but can't get past it. Qwirk has had that same issue in the state quarterfinals with volleyball, with boys basketball, with girls basketball. So that may be Joe, if y'all don't get past Argyle in the regional round, we'll talk about that in a moment, our 4A segment, you may want to drive down a couple of days early to check out a potential Qwirk-Austin matchup.
Well, you know me, I'd love to go see a good basketball game just about anywhere. So, yeah, I'll be game to do that.
Let's move on now to Class 5A, where we mentioned Cedar Park at the beginning, and Donnie Ott was here earlier. We do not have the Manning brothers curse because coaches keep winning when they come on. Donnie Ott's Cedar Park team didn't have much trouble with San Antonio Edison. We mentioned Edison. Thomas Edison has about 1,100 patents to his credit. None of those are how to beat Cedar Park. They were not really able to put up get much going, although it was competitive, at least for the most part of the first quarter, but Cedar Park able to take it on. They'll take on New Braunfels Canyon. I told you, Joe, that Canyon team who needed a buzzer beater by Chase Getz to get out of the first round, they gave Cedar Park a lot of issues last year. And I think that third round matchup, which is scheduled for Northeast ISD's gym, that one I think is going to be a lot more competitive than what people think.
Well, if that Canyon team was that good a year ago, they probably have that confidence that they can play with Cedar Park. So Cedar Park's going to probably have to play well to win.
Yeah, they met last year in Cedar Park, got all they could handle from New Braunfels Canyon. Kyla Malone, we've mentioned her name a few times, and Canyon is still PO'd about how their volleyball season ended, losing a 2-0 lead in the state semifinals and losing. So that's going to be a dangerous game for Cedar Park. And quite frankly, if Cedar Park gets by that, fairly strong opportunity that they'll be back at the Dome. McAllen and Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial both advanced, McAllen beating Rio Grande City by 2. Georgetown, Rhonda Farney loves that defense. They won 27-15 in the first round over Bernie Champion. They beat Medina Valley 30-24. That's 57 points Georgetown has scored in their first 2 games. They'll take on Liberty Hill, who scored 62 in beating Highlands 62-43. Corpus Christi, Flower Bluff, and Laredo Cigarro will be the other side. But Joe, we're kind of seeing that style with Rhonda Farney wanting to play defense. You've gone up against her a lot, and I guess she's one of those that she loves to keep it in the 20s and 30s whenever possible.
Yeah, we our generation, I guess we used to play a lot of games like that. And, you know, it doesn't matter how many you score as long as you score one more than the opponent.
Cliche.
And you're probably controlling the tempo of the game. If you want a low-scoring game, it's actually, Greg, a little easier to do that than to speed up a good team. So, you know, you think about a close game, instead of having 60 or 70 possessions, you may have 40. And so you need to be good at those 40 that you have. And that can happen in those type games. So, and when you do it a lot, you get a little used to that. So Georgetown's probably used to playing like that, obviously. And they're, when you're used to playing in close games, I think it helps you in the playoffs. If you blow everybody out and not used to playing a close game, when you finally get in that situation, it's tough. You fight some mental things there when you're used to the blowout. So she's got a good team. She's got them going.
Excuse me. I had to sneeze. I got to get that. I got to get that fixed. Well, the rest of 5A and the other regions, it's going to be so we meet again, in the words of Sean Connery, with Region 1, Lubbock, Cooper, and Amarillo High.
Oh, let me talk about that, Greg.
Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, I think they're the top two teams in Region 1. They have played once, and Cooper won by 2 or 3. But here's the kicker. The boys are going to play each other their first round. And so they're going to go girls and boys, Lubbock Cooper versus Amarillo High at the Dimmitt High School gym, which is not all that big. So they're going to be packed from the rafters, and it's going to be a crazy environment. And I think the boys' game is first and the girls' game is second. That's what I heard that night. So love to be there. Love to see that game. That's going to be fun. A lot of great players and two really, really good teams.
Yeah, I remember covering some of those old varsity double headers when I was in West Texas, especially in the playoffs, where you get into one of those small gyms, it'll be one of those SRO standing room only games where everybody will be cheering, and then whoever plays first will get dressed, and then they'll be cheering on the second game. That one will definitely be worth the price of admission, as well as the interesting fact that between regions 1 and 2, we have 3 Mansfield ISD teams that are still playing. Timberview and Legacy will play each other in the third round. The winner of that one will get Cooper Amarillo. Region 2, Memorial, Lone Star, and Liberty, all out of Frisco ISD. Will also play. Memorial and Lone Star will play each other. And so, Joe, we're seeing all of the districts where in Canyon Randall and y'all's district in 5A, in your school district, they're all still playing. So you're seeing all this. Is it familiarity breeds contempt?
Maybe. But I know you have a program that is successful. The other programs and the other schools want to step up and match them. So I think competition can be a good thing. One of the greatest things that happened to us was in 1992, Canyon and Randall both won state titles that same year. I don't know if it's ever happened before out of the same school district. So that was 1992, and that was something I'll never forget.
Yeah, those are. We'll get my researcher Juliet Bunsen to check that out. But it's really interesting to see how you have Timberview and Legacy. They're going to play each other again. Timberview has been is the district champion. Canyon, Randall, Lubbock, Monterey, Lake Dallas, Mansfield, Summit. Then you jump down to Region 2. We mentioned Memorial and Lone Star playing each other. Dallas Highland Park, which is not a school that is known for its basketball. It's known for pretty much every other sport out there, but they're into the third round. They'll take on North Forney. McKinney North, who is what'll be a very good matchup, potentially maybe one of those state semifinal, a game that could be a state semifinal. McKinney North taking on Frisco Liberty. Of course, Liberty has been to the Dome the last few years. North has not been to the state semis since the last year that it was at the Drum. And then Red Oak and Royce City. And Royce City is a school that we haven't talked too much about. They're a power there. And so Region 2 is just, boy, is that girthy.
Yeah, I like Region 2. There's so many good teams. And I don't know the clear-cut favorite. I think there's 3 or 4 teams that looks like to me could win that region. So and then when you have the same district, like you mentioned, that adds a little icing to the cake. I think, Liberty won it last year. So you have to knock them off, like you said earlier. And so somebody's got to beat those guys. And their game with McKinney North will be a contrast in styles. You'll have probably a little more of a fast breaking, up tempo style from McKinney, and then very slow paced Liberty team, much like the Rhonda Farney Georgetown team. They'll be controlling the tempo, and it'll be a low scoring game.
And then finally, Region 3, which is always the hodgepodge of different schools. You've got the Austin area, the Houston area, the College Station area, the Beaumont area, Pflugerville Weiss, which is still relatively new school. They're into the third round. They'll take on College Station, who, of course, is a power pretty much in just about everything they play in. Richmond Foster, they're into the third round. It'll probably be Manville who they'll get next. Pflugerville Hendrickson is a school that really doesn't get a lot of coverage because Regent Austin has part of their area in Region 3. Pflugerville Hendrickson, boy, if they and Cedar Park were in the same region, that would be a heck of a playoff matchup, but they can't play each other until at least the state semifinals.
Yeah, they're I think they finished up ranked 6th in the state of Texas in Class 5A. And so, you know, if they're ranked that high, they've got to be pretty good. So I look for them to go a long way.
And they're into the third round, second week of the tournament. They'll take on Magnolia West in round 3, and then Richmond Full Shear will take on Beaumont United. That's the other third round matchup. And already mentioned Region 4 at the top. Well, we get to Class 4A, and we mentioned how there was some drama in Class 3A earlier on. There's some drama as well in 3A, or excuse me, in 4A, with Paris High beating Cattle Mills in overtime, 82-73. First time they're into the third round since 2010. Nick Alvarado, Texas HS Girls Basketball. Thanks for pointing that out. Make sure, by the way, you check out his site. They'll take on Gilmer, who again a football power. This is Region 2, by the way. We'll get back to your Region 1 in a second. Dallas, Lincoln, and Midlothian Heritage will play in the third round. Kennedale, Sanger, Brownsboro also advancing. So, Joe, before we get to your region, that Cattle Mills game, maybe not a lot of people are familiar with Cattle Mills, but a lot of people saying that's a significant upset.
Yeah, that's that's awesome for those guys to be able to win that type of a game. I tell you a game that's going to be really be fun to watch would be the third round game with Brownsboro and Sunnyvale. Those guys they have top-notch programs, and I think that's going to be a great game. And I think the winner of that game could win that region. However, we've played Midlothian Heritage. They're very good. It wouldn't surprise me if they came out of there. You know, Kennedale Sanger is going to be a good matchup, I think. But Brownsboro and Sunnyvale, that really gets my attention. I think that's a potential regional championship right there.
Ooh, I love it when we find a matchup that impresses and entertains. The hard to impress Ed Asner version of Joe Lombard. Well, Joe, we get back. Let's get to your home region, Region 1, where it really was status quo. You all were afraid of San Elizario, but you beat them by 38. Levelland, Bridgeport, Argyle, Seminole all move on. Big Spring, a school I used to cover for many years, they're into the third round in what seems like forever after beating Clint Mountain View. Decatur beat Glen Rose in overtime, which was probably going to be the best game, maybe Argyle and Stephenville as well in the second round. They'll take on Crum. So, Joe, this is your region. We know we've all been talking about Canyon and Argyle. Break it down.
Well, Canyon plays Levelland next, and Levelland, I think that's a toss-up game. Levelland is really good. They are well coached. They have three-point shooters everywhere. They play a different type of style of defense. I think that Canyon Levelland game is I mean, could go either way. I think Argyle had a great game. I saw the Argyle Stephenville game, and it was close till halftime, and Argyle pulled away. I kind of expect Argyle to beat. That's the fourth place team in their district, Bridgeport. And Bridgeport, though, is well coached too, but Argyle's got to be probably the favorite. Big Spring was an upset. Them getting to this third round, that was an upset. They run into Seminole, who is a top 10 team in our region. And then the Decatur Crum should be a really good game. Like you said, Decatur won in overtime against Glen Rose. And Crum is that third place team out of that Argyle district. So I think there's some great matchups, and you better not look ahead, because there's people that can beat you now. We've talked about this third round thing. We are District 3 and District 4, Levelland versus Canyon at Region 1. And we both this year pretty much won our districts pretty easily, but now we face up against each other. And there's a long tradition with that game. We went back in the days of Dean Weiss and 35 years ago when we started playing those guys for big games. And that's a long-standing rivalry. And that's going to be fun to be a part of that again this year, Greg.
Yeah, that one's one of those where you've got a little something for everyone. You've got the Powers and Canyon and Argyle. You've got Levelland and Bridgeport, who are not teams to sleep on. You mentioned Bridgeport being a fourth place team, and sometimes you get those fourth place teams that are field fillers that have losing records. Other times you get fourth place teams that are there because of how strong their district is. We mentioned San Antonio Johnson in our 6A segment. Then you've got Big Spring again, the home of the Tannehills and the school I used to cover for many years. Maybe you never know, they could that's your Cinderella there. And so there's something there for everyone, Joe.
I think so. I think it's a great region, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all turns out. But there's going to be some really good games Monday and Tuesday night.
Yeah, and by the way, District 7 4A is one of two districts that have everybody still playing. 11 6A is the other one. Again, Nick Alvarado, Texas HS Girls Basketball. Make sure you check out his site because he has all the matchups and stuff like that. They do a great job. Heck, our local paper here didn't even have half the matchups, so I had to go to Nick's site to find out how things were going. Well, let's continue in 4A with Region 3. Well, we mentioned Hardin Jefferson, Ashland Jackson. They beat Navasota 92-36. They'll play Silsbee in the third round. Again, they beat Houston Worthing 99-62. So, Joe, that's a game with two schools we know love to run the ball up and down the court all the time, whether it's boys or girls. They combined for 191 points. So, Joe, I'm guessing the scorekeeper, they may have to get an extra scoreboard operator because someone's going to get carpal tunnel trying to put all the points into the book.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a very high scoring game. And I know Hardin Jefferson can put up a lot of points, and Silsbee, I think they've got a great boys program too that scores a lot. I think so. That'd be fun to watch. It'd be a track meet, but and then you got La Vega. La Vega's very talented, very athletic. They're lurking in the shadows there. I sure like Hardin Jefferson out of this region, but I think La Vega is a dark horse.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Joe, because you played Hardin Jefferson in the state final, a team that was averaging 90 points a game last year. This year, they're only in the 70s. For those that maybe are watching, trying to figure out how do you slow down a team that scores 90 points a game, you all were able to do it last year. I know maybe the dome and the intimidation factor had something to do with it for Hardin Jefferson, but if you're a coach and you see a team putting up 90 points a game, how do you slow them down or keep them at a point total that you would be more comfortable with?
Yeah, well, for sure with our offense, we got to make sure we don't turn it over and give them easy baskets. So if we can keep from turning the ball over, we can have some longer possessions on offense and have a chance to have some success. However, Greg, if we're turning the ball over and they're getting layups every time, you're never going to win a game like that. So taking care of the ball is one. Probably playing your tempo is two. And I think you got to make sure you get back on defense. And I think you better rebound the ball. Don't let those type teams have any easy leak outs or any easy putbacks. And so if you do those little fundamental things, you got a chance. That's not saying you're going to do it, but you got a chance. If you don't do those little fundamental things, you got no chance. So, and Hardin Jefferson, like we talked about, they're playing well, even though they're not scoring quite as many points. Like you talked about earlier, they played a much tougher schedule this year. So, I think they're getting ready for a big run.
Yeah, Mike Fogel mentioned how they had to, when I talked to him before the tournament started, how they had to boost their schedule up. They were kind of hurt by the virus last year where they couldn't travel to where they wanted to go, and so they weren't able to do that. The rest of Region 3 mentioned Silsbee and Hardin Jefferson. Waco La Vega mentioned them. They're going to take on Palestine, who is into the third round. First time since 2001 that they're into the third round. Huffman Hargrave, home of George Foreman and the Foreman Grill. They will take on Little Cypress Mauriceville, who beat Houston Ashton by 1 point. Talk about that 1 point that matters. They got it. And then Burnett out of the Austin area. They'll take on Lake Belton. Lake Belton, a relatively new school, into the third round for the first time ever. So again, just like we said in Region 1, a little mix of just about everything, Joe.
I think so. I mean, you got some traditional powers there, and then you got some teams that are a little bit new to this. So that's fun to see how that all turns out.
And then finally, Region 4, 4A, not quite as much drama as we've seen in some of the other ones. Fredericksburg won in a blowout. Bernie won in a blowout. Still on course to see each other in the state quarterfinals. Fredericksburg will take on Lavernia in round 3. Somerset, a school that really doesn't get a lot of attention. Their boys team lost at the buzzer last year in the quarters to Bernie. Their girls team eked out a 2-point win over Rio Hondo. They will go to the third round and take on Toulouse Midway out of the Coastal Bend area. If they win that, it could be them and Fredericksburg, which I think will actually be a very entertaining matchup. The other side, Geronimo Navarro, they'll take on Bernie. And then Kingsville King out of the Coastal Bend will take on Divine Joe. So Region 4, not quite as much drama or fun if you're the one who loves upsets, where there's not quite as much right now.
Yeah, Fredericksburg and Bernie, we've been talking about them. They've both been ranked top 10 all year, play in the same district. This will be the third time they play. They've each won once. So I look for the regional champion to be one of those two schools. However, you just never know until you play the game. So if there's an upset out there, I'm sure not picking it, but if it happens, I think that's fun for the viewers to see that everybody has a chance once you get to the playoffs.
Well, Joe, we've gone through. We've actually, I think we mentioned every single team that is still in the draw. I hope we did, because that's the one thing you love to do is when you get to this round where everybody who's there belongs, whether you're a contender that's got a shot at the state championship, a team that maybe is on that second tier that has been forgotten about, maybe those Cinderellas, such as the 9 fourth place teams that are still alive. Nick Alvarado pointed that out to me, where again, in the third round is when the drama begins, but there's always a team for everyone, even if your team is already out of the tournament. Yeah.
It's and it may be a 1 and 4 playing out of the same district, or a 2 and 3. So a lot of things can happen, and it's kind of a nerve-wracking game, because when you play somebody a third time, they know you pretty well. So it's those type of things kind of even it up a little bit.
Or a fourth time, like in the case of San Antonio Clark and the Johnson Jaguars playing for a fourth time out of the same district. Well, Joe, it's always fun to catch up with you, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in this third round, because this is usually the round when we're going to figure out who's really a contender with all these teams playing each other. Obviously, I wish you the best of luck in your third round matchup, and Joe, we'll look forward to taping and talking about the regional level. We'll have that coming up, where we'll break down all of the 96 teams that will advance to the fourth round. And Joe, it's supposed to be in the 80s in San Antonio Monday and Tuesday before it gets cold. I don't know if you'll be breaking out your purple polka dot bikini up in Amarillo, but try not to get a suntan, and we'll look forward to seeing you for the fourth round preview coming up later in the week. Joe, thanks so much for joining us.
Sounds good, Greg. Thank you very much.
And we thank you so much for joining us. And as always, follow us on YouTube and on Twitter. And everybody, enjoy the tournament.